Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming a very talented, very funny lady in the world of improv and sketch comedy, who's been on many, many sitcoms and been in many, many movies, particularly lots of Garry Marshall movies. Her name is Jane Morris. Jane was at Second City in the, I believe it was the early 80s, during that whole third or fourth wave, however you'd like to describe it, of Second City performers. And I'm having her on the show today to talk about all of that stuff. You know, she's been in so many great movies. She was in Nothing in Common. She was in True Lies. She was in What Planet Are You From? And of course, she's been on a lot of shows like the Drew Carey Show. And she's done a lot of great work. So here is my interview with Jane Morris.
Hello.
Hey Jane, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's very hot today over where I'm at.
Where are you?
Redding, California.
Oh, yeah, it's hot there. It's nice here. I live down by the ocean.
Oh, nice. This is such a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, my pleasure.
So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward acting, performing early on in your childhood?
I did. I was the class clown. And I totally was. But I wanted to be a musician, and I worked really hard for that. And I could play some complex stuff on the piano, but I was around people who were really good musicians, and I could see the difference between me and them. And I just knew I didn't have the chops, and I never would, no matter how hard I worked. And so I thought, it was kind of like not a choice. It was like what I was already doing, really. Mm-hmm. But I did make a conscious decision in college to only pursue comedy. Because we had to do, you do acting scenes and all that sort of thing. And I just never knew if I was doing a good job or not. When you're doing drama, you don't know if you're getting over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When
you're doing comedy, you either get a laugh or you don't. So you know it's working or not.
Wow.
I always felt like so weird. Now I don't have a problem doing drama, but in my old age, I've done quite a bit now. But, I just really felt phony and weird and in over my head when I was a kid. And even in directing class, because I do a lot of directing. Even in directing class, I did the same thing. I made they give you a type of scene that you have to direct, a suspense scene, a climactic scene, whatever. And I only did comedy. There's some amazing comedy suspense scenes. Some really good ones. So, yeah.
Did everyone tell you growing up that you were funny?
Oh, yeah. I was a big goof. It was only in my late 50s, somewhere in my 50s, did it occur to me that I must be a real freak out in the world because women don't make faces. And I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to make faces. I know my mother was always trying to tamp me down a little bit. But at the same time, she was funny about that because she was always like, it's not ladylike or whatever, But but then she also was very encouraging, really, of what I was doing.
Did you consider doing stand-up comedy before you went into sketch and improv?
No, it terrified me. That terrified me, just being alone up there and floating a joke out, hoping that someone would laugh at it. I was really more into comedic theater. I didn't do improvisation. I liked plays and I was directing at the time too, so I was doing like there's this weird little play called Chamber Music, which is actually really fun, but kind of falls apart at the end. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where we would do these, comedic plays, and then here's what happened. I was with this group of people when we graduated college that we wanted to continue working together. And we sort of joined this theater company that had a theater in an old church on Diversey. And it was just a big empty church. The seating was pews, and the whole front of it was a stage. Now, at that point in Chicago, the only stages were stand-up stages, other than like Second City, which really, Second City main stage, it's like a hallway. It's really narrow and long. It's not like a stage,
Yeah.
And anyway, so this had this big, gigantic stage, and so we went there to do plays, and we did it. We produced a couple plays, and they were sort of bombs. I won't say they were totally bombs, but they were bomb-ish. And then we were right around the corner from. I don't mean they were artistically bombs. I mean it was hard to get people to come to what we were doing. Because around the corner from us literally was St. Nick, Theater, St. Nicholas Theater, with their in-house playwright, David Mamet. So we used to call him David Mamet. He was right around the corner, so we just could not compete with that. And one of the guys in the group said, well, why don't we do comedy, and we'll book a group that has a following. Or a stand-up that has a following, and we'll open for them. Now, at this point, I had never done improvisation, but I had done a lot of sketch comedy. Right out of college, I was with a group called the Unnatural Acts. And it was after that we started this theater thing. And Unnatural Acts weren't actually involved in the theater thing. That was my college buddies. Anyway, so we had this theater, and we started doing, we let people bring their own booze, and they sat in pews, and we opened for them, and I learned improvisation trial by fire in front of an audience with people that knew a little bit about improvisation, and we would rehearse for 2 hours a night, 2 nights a week, and we would do one game. We would work on one game, and then we wrote little sketches and blackouts and stuff, and we opened, and we got really good because we were working all the time, and that's how I got tapped for Second City.
Wow.
Noni Breen saw me there.
Yeah, I mean, that was right in the middle of a comedy revolution. Everyone was at humble beginnings, performing in just the strangest places. I've talked to a lot of people. Yeah,
Unnatural Acts. We were at Hull House first.
Yeah.
At least the group existed, and one of the women, they had 2 women in the group, and one of them was quitting, and they took me on. And I know the first show I did with them, they were looking at the guy that tapped me and said, why? They were just looking at him like, where did you find this mess? And then the second show I did with them, they were like, oh, okay, we see why. And from then on, we were just thick as thieves and had the best time ever. And we went from Hull House to this place called Sheedy's, which was a bar that had this back room. And we made the back room into a little theater, and that was our little home back there.
Nice. Wow. And so
that was Chicago. You could open a storefront and do whatever, and people would come.
So what year did you get to Second City?
Probably 1980, I'm thinking.
1980.
80, 81, somewhere in there. 81, probably.
Who was there when you got there?
On stage was Danny Breen, John Kapelos. I think Belushi was still in and out at that point. Megan Fay, Rick Thomas was there. George went, and those people had just left. So when I first started, all I heard was the praises of Miriam Flynn, the well-deserved praises of Miriam Flynn. Of course, Fred Kaz was still there. And then I was understudying. I was in the touring company, but I was understudying for Noni. Noni and Danny were there, Danny Breen and Noni.
Yeah.
And Megan Fay was the other woman in the company. And Noni pulled me aside opening night and said, you got hired because you were replacing me Noni was going from at that point from the tour co to main stage. Mm-hmm. And then she didn't go because they had a young baby and it was just too much. But then I ended up, so I went into tour co, and then I ended up, and she didn't even tour anymore because the baby, anyway, I ended up understudying for her like crazy. So I was on main stage for months at a time at that point. Mm-hmm. And then behind all that, ETC happened. So, well, it didn't happen. We made it happen.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of a don't take no for an answer person.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Everyone should be that way, I feel. But a little bit later... Then...
Wait, I got to move because the garbage truck is in the alley behind me. It's super noisy. Hear that?
No, I didn't hear it.
Here's my cat.
My cat, she's...
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you say?
I was just going to say, then a little bit later, guys like Richard Kind and Dan Castellaneta showed up there.
Dan was in our first ETC company. He he drew the poster for it.
Yeah.
Cows on Ice. Rich Kind, at the time, when ETC started, Practical Theater was in the ETC as well. And Paul Sills had been working back there doing story theater, and then Practical came in with their cast, and, they were fantastic. Practical Theater was Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Brad Hall, Gary Kroger. I hate naming people because then you leave somebody out and they feel bad, but anyway, they were back there. And Rich was with them, I think, at the time, pretty sure. Mm-hmm. That's where they found him from Practical. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what happened. And we went to Joyce Sloan and said, hey, how come we can't do work back there? Like, how come outside people are getting to use the stage and we don't? And she said, okay. And so she had us rotate with Practical. They were in a week, then we'd be in a week. We went back and forth like that. And we were being passed up for main stage, our group of people. Bernie would have these, everybody called them bake-offs, Bernie bake-offs.
Yeah.
Where he would hold auditions for people that had been working there for years. And then every time he did that, it would be a new thing. Like this time, this set of auditions, you'd have to be good at make-a-songs, or this time he wanted everybody to be able to do lots of accents, or it was just so arbitrary and bizarre. And he passed us all over and over again. He'd bring in actors from New York and all over. We were so bitter and angry. We just started writing our own material while we were on the road.
Yeah.
We started putting our own material into the Tour Co show. Now, it wasn't a lot. It was a scene here and a scene there and a song. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You guys...
And then when we went into the ETC, we were supposed to do the same thing. Tour Co does a best of show. So you can do either the last show that just was on main stage, or you can do scenes from 4,000 years ago, like Funeral, which you always do, right? And we just started, we just kept doing that. We just kept replacing Second City scenes with our own material, which, come on, those are Second City scenes too, aren't they? Who are we working for here? And then we had a show, and then I don't know if you know the whole ETC story, but it's a whole big thing where Bernie would go on these digs, and he didn't want us to open a show, and we ignored him and did it anyway. But Joyce Sloan told us when he was out of town, he would go on these archaeological digs.
Yeah.
So we timed the show to open while he was out of town, and it made him really angry, and he told her to fire all of us, but she talked him out of it.
Wow.
And ETC is still there. It's 37 years old.
Yeah. You guys were like the early content creators before the internet.
Yeah, we were. I would say we were. I think that was that's sort of the mandate of Second City, in my opinion. And it's what separates Second City from virtually any other comedy school. IO has more of a touch of that, but Second City is about ideas. Mm-hmm. What's the idea behind the scene? What's it about? And when I was directing there, that was like the main issue I had with my actors. Sometimes they'd go, I got this great idea for a scene. It's this. I'm like, yeah, that's what happened. What's it about? And they'd say, well, this. I'm going, no, that's what happened. What is this scene about? And that came from Bernie. That came from Fred Kaz. That came from Del. That came, that's the tradition of Second City.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Content, yeah. Did you ever try to get on Saturday Night Live?
Yes. I'd rather not even talk about that. It was so painful and awful. Yeah. I was brought in. I'm trying to think if it was the show I directed or the show before that. Where was I living? I was in Chicago. Anyway, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was. I did not understand what would be expected of me when I arrived, and I could not have done a worse audition. It was painfully embarrassing to a room full of people. It was just awful. And when I went, it was me and Nora Dunn. Nora is a lovely lady, and we flew out there together, and she was prepared and got the job. I thought I could wing it.
Yeah, I have a friend.
That's kind of what I do. I have a thing, but then I leave a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah.
And I have all these scenes that I do with other people, and I thought, I'll just do them kind of as monologues. And I prepared nothing. And then you start to do something that's a scene as a monologue, you realize really quickly you can't, right?
Right.
Oh, it was so awful. So bad. And then years later, after I did Frankie and Johnny, I had a lot of heat on me at the time because of that character in that movie, and I met with the Brillstein people, and they were like, wouldn't you want to be on SNL? Well, at this point, I'm like, I think I was 38 years old, and I'm like, no, I wouldn't. First of all, don't you think I'm too old? I know personal friends of mine that you passed up because they were too old and for no other reason. And also, I spent my whole life doing sketch comedy, and you really think of life as a sketch while you're doing that. Everything you do is this, what would the sketch be? And so I was so tired of that. I just couldn't. I was completely burned out on that.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I said, yeah, no, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
Nothing came of my meeting with them either.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I have a friend that
Probably because I'm too old.
I have a friend that I came up with in stand-up comedy. He got to audition about 4 years ago. He was performing at the stand-up open mic at the UCB in Hollywood, and he was doing a character. He was doing a character on stage that he had come up with on the fly, and the guy was like, "Hey, there's going to be a Saturday Night Live audition next week. You should come." And so he did, and they put him on the spot where he had to just go into all these different characters and stuff. He says it was really nerve-wracking, but Lorne Michaels liked him, and he flew him out to New York to meet with the NBC guys, and then he didn't get it after that meeting.
Yeah, you just don't know. I had a meeting with Al Franken, actually, on that same trip about being a writer. Mm-hmm. And they were interested in having me come in as a writer. And on the one hand, I sometimes think, wow, what if I had gone ahead, tried for that? Because I didn't. I basically said, well, you'd have to hire my husband with me because we're kind of a writing team.
Yeah.
And, and I did not have the confidence. What I've learned in my life is that once you throw me into a situation, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that about myself then. And I don't know if I would have been okay, frankly, in that environment. It's completely different from the cast that I was working with. We were very sympathetic to each other, very empathetic with each other.
Supportive.
And, not to say we didn't have our blowouts and craziness. We certainly did. But in terms of putting work on, we could work. And the idea of just pitching jokes and, I don't I don't know. But anyway, I said, oh gosh, I don't write by myself. Everything I've written that you saw that you liked, I wrote with someone. So
yeah,
kind of said no. I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes. And they were interested in just me.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And I got along great with Al Franken, which was really kind of fun. I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Glad you like my work, sir.
Yeah. You directed and received the Joseph Jefferson Award for a review of Channel This?
Did not.
Okay, that's...
I directed Channel This. I'll just say not a lot. I directed the show, yes. We were nominated, yes. But we did not win. And but we did get to ride in Lily Tomlin's limo that night.
Nice.
She had come to see our show, and she loved it, and came backstage, and there was this character I played that was on these giant shoes that she thought was so hilarious. And then we went to see her show, Search for Intelligent Life, was playing in Chicago at the time, and we went a couple of times to that. So we knew each other, sort of, you know. And when she saw us at the Jeff Awards, she gave us her limo to go home in.
Yeah, it says on IMDb incorrectly that you won the award, so I apologize for that.
Good, leave it there. Just leave it.
Wow, that's awesome. So what year did you move to LA?
89.
89. And you had already been working. Your first movie was the first of many with Garry Marshall, Nothing in Common. I love that movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to hire our entire company to be Tom Hanks's advertising staff.
Yeah.
And, and Second City kind of stepped in and tried to broker that.
Mm-hmm.
And Garry was like, no, I just want to hire these actors, you know. Yeah. But what it did was it sort of got in the way of hiring the company as a company. And, but most of us did do the movie. Bill Applebaum, who was also in the original ETC company, and Jeff and I. Was Rich Kind in there? I can't remember. Mike Haggerty was on main stage at the time. They hired him.
No, he wasn't
John
in it.
Kapelos.
John was in it, yeah.
Mona Lydon, who had been at Second City.
Mike Haggerty.
Mike Haggerty, John Kapelos, Bill, me, Jeff.
Castellaneta, he was in it.
Yeah. The guy that really got left... Oh, and Dan Castellaneta also was in Nothing in Common. The guy that really got left out of that one was Jim Fay. And I don't know what happened there. Jim Fay was in our original ETC company, too. And Jim was just brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I still miss him.
Yeah. I love it when you're all doing the advertisement pitch for the airline and you're the old lady. Call me Hattie.
That was improvised.
Really?
Now listen, when we shot it, it was not improvised.
Yeah.
But Garry got us all into a room, knew I could play the guitar. That's me playing that guitar. That's not dubbed over. I had just learned to do hammer finger, and he had us work that out in a room, and then we kind of got it. You know, we worked it through a few times with Tom Hanks and the company, and then we did it. When we did it, the movie was tight. We knew what we were doing, but we improvised it.
Wow. And did you always have that 80s mullet hairdo?
I had that 80s mullet hairdo, which wasn't quite a mullet. It wasn't actually a mullet, but I wouldn't argue with you when you call it one.
Yeah.
But I had that pretty much through, not all through Second City, but certainly trying to think when I started growing my hair back out. It was after I moved out here for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought you looked cute with it. You reminded me of Pat Benatar with it.
Yeah, it was a good look for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. And my hair, I have a lot of hair.
Yeah.
And so when I have all my hair, it goes all over my face, and it's really hard to control, and it's just hard to deal with. There's so much of it.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the things that happened to me at Second City that was really odd was that because my hair was so short, when I wanted to play different characters, that picture you had of me, that blonde wig, that wig was so hideous. And so I wore wigs, right?
Right.
I was the only person that did that. But it was only because my hair was really short. But what it did is it started all the other women, well, I should say all, but I got complaints from the management that all the women now were wearing wigs because of Jane. And I'm like, Jane wears wigs because she has no hair to change her look, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So don't blame me if I don't know what your deal is.
Yeah, plus playing a character like a blonde woman or something, you know. But
yeah, I would always look the same in although I had some really good looks with that hair short that way, like coffee shop was one thing and the junk shop lady was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That I can't replicate with my hair longer.
Yeah.
These crazy gassed back hairdos I had.
You did what, 7 or 8 movies with Garry Marshall?
Yeah, I don't know how many. I'd have to look. Some big parts, some little parts.
Yeah. What did you like about working with him?
Oh, everything. Oh, my God, everything. First of all, he was just the most delightful, funny person.
Mm-hmm.
Liked funny people, so it was like a mutual admiration society working with him. Then he was really loyal to people. Like, he hired his whole, like, when you watch the opening scene of Frankie and Johnny and Michelle Pfeiffer's on the bus, and they just pan across all the people on the bus, that's the script consultant, the first AD, the prop guy, you know what I mean? It's like, that's who's in that bus. And so when you would go to work on his set, it's like, oh, hi, Jim, it's the prop guy. You know, it's the prop guy from every movie you've done with them. It's like old home week when you come there. And he had punch-up writers, and they were just all really fun. And, oh, my gosh, it was just delightful. I will tell you my favorite Garry story. I had cancer years ago, and it was not a scary, I mean, it was, you know, it's scary and miserable to have cancer and go through treatment, but it wasn't like I was going to die. Like, I always knew it was treatable and I'd be fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right after I was done with all that and I was back working, the first thing I did was Raising Helen with Garry, where I played the landlord. And we were in an actual building, an old apartment building, and we were shooting that, and we were sitting in between takes on a radiator. And he said to me, so, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. I always knew I'd be fine. I'm fine. He goes, oh, good. He goes, you know, we need funny people in the world. We cannot lose any funny people.
Oh.
That's what he said. Oh, he was delightful. The other story for me that was really great with Garry was he has a memory like an elephant. Okay, so you know how I got the job in Frankie and Johnny, which was not the first time I worked with Garry, mind you. We'd already done Nothing in Common.
Yeah.
He had seen our second show, Mirrors at the Border, which had the coffee shop woman in it, which was Netta, right? That character.
Yeah.
And that scene was improvised around some set jokes is the way we did it. We actually opened a newspaper and improvised.
Mm-hmm.
We did it. So having worked with Garry before, he would call you in for... so Garry saw this at the ETC long ago, right?
Right.
And now we're out in L.A. 6 years later, 7 years later. And he would call us in for table reads. Now, when you did a table read with him, you'd read 4 or 5 different roles, and he'd say, this isn't an audition, just read the damn role. Don't do shit with it. You know what I mean? Don't be cute.
Yeah.
So we go, it's at Penny Marshall's house, and we're doing the table read, and he comes, and okay, so now I read the script, and I read this character, Netta, which is one of the people on my list that I'm reading, and I'm like, oh my God, this is that character I play, but I never would have done it at the table read, right? It was against the mandate. So we're standing at the buffet table before the read, and Garry comes up to me and says, you know that character you do in that coffee shop scene? When you read Netta, do her. Well, I'm like, thank you. So yeah, he wrote that part for me.
Oh.
And that's what happened. And we kept doing table reads with different combinations. It would be Penny and Hector Elizondo as the 2 leads, and Laurie Metcalf and somebody as the 2 leads. And one day we walked in, and it was Al Pacino, and all of us were, these are all table reads.
Yeah.
And Taylor Negron and I look at each other like, oh my fucking God. And Taylor goes to me, are we just all going to pretend like this is just normal and we're in a room with Al Pacino? I said, yes, that's what we're going to do. Stop eating crackers. So that was just amazing. And in that same vein, one time we were doing, I can't remember the name of the movie, Dear God, which wasn't a very good one.
Yeah.
And it was a real tight set that day. And we, like the cameras were all over it was just really tight. You couldn't move. And some friends of mine had come from Chicago, and I met them across the street for breakfast and then asked Garry if they could walk onto the set. And I felt like that was kind of a big ask because it was kind of, tight. He said, yeah, bring your friends in. Well, there's like 6 of them. And they had all been at a play together, several plays together. They were from Live Bait Theater in Chicago. And so Garry comes over to say hi, and he rears back, and he looks at this one guy. He's a very tall black man named Michael Shepard. Great actor, Michael. Musical theater, super talented guy. Mm-hmm. Rears back, he looks at Michael, and he goes, I know you. You were in that cartoon play. Now I can see these people, my friends, looking at each other like, what is he talking? They don't even know what he's talking about, right? They can't. They're like, what is this? Right. And before they can figure it out, he goes, that Linda Berry play. Now, Linda Berry had written a play called The Good Times Are Killing Me, and this was, in fact, the cast from The Good Times Are Killing Me, standing on a soundstage at 10 a.m. in the morning, 10 years after they had done this show. And Garry looks at this guy and goes, I know you. You were in that cartoon play. Later I say to him, Garry, that was bizarre. He goes, what? I know your friends. Garry, it was 10 years ago. Like, what is your deal? But you would just suddenly, how would you even... That was Garry.
Yeah.
That's why everybody loved him. He remembered you.
Yeah, I've talked.
Delightful and funny and sweet and looked out for people. One day on the set of Frankie and Johnny, mm-hmm. there was this old lady, and you know how extras have to sign vouchers, and hopefully someday they'll get their SAG card. Right. They found out this old lady was like a breath away from whatever she needed. She needed to say a line in a movie, so they gave her a line. Like, that's the way they were. Yeah. They would just try to keep you around so that you would get paid more money. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Oh, we don't know. We might need him in this scene coming up. We're not sure. Oh, now we're in overtime. You know?
Yeah.
They were fantastic that way. It's family. They're just family.
Yeah, I've talked to his niece Tracy and a few people from Happy Days and Liver and Shirley, and they all told me the reason his work was so successful was because he understood humanity.
He did. He so did.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You worked with Paul Brickman on Men Don't Leave.
Did I?
Yeah.
What did Paul Brickman do? Was he the director?
He was the director, yeah.
Yeah, I have no recollection of him whatsoever.
Yeah, it's the only other movie he directed after Risky Business, which was 7 years before this. But then after that...
I don't have any memory of him at all. I remember working with Jessica Lange. That was kind of odd.
Yeah? How is she?
Oh, she was fine, but she stays in character the whole time, and it was a funeral scene.
Yeah.
It was like just crazy hot out. Mm-hmm. And we were in a house somewhere. It was in Illinois. I was still at Second City for that one. And, yeah, it was fine. It was, I mean, my part was like a little nothing of a part. But I had 2 scenes, one at a grocery store, both with her.
Yeah.
It was fine.
I think she's one of the best actresses out there.
Yeah, I didn't get to know her in any way.
Yeah.
Like I said, she stays in character.
The first series you were a regular on was His and Her?
Yeah.
How was working with Martin Mull?
Oh, delightful. Him and Stephanie Faracy. And Stephanie Faracy's brother is a guy named Brian Faracy, who's in Chicago. And he and I went to college together. So right away we had something to talk about. And then the guy that played my husband, Jim Duncan, oh my God, Jim Dugan. And Cynthia Seghetti, we laughed all day, every day. That's all we did. We laughed our asses off.
Mm-hmm.
There was another movie like that. 3, where the people that I was with were part of an internal ensemble. You know, like we were supposed to be the couples therapy group. So there were 6 of us, 3 couples. But for some reason, the Battling Buckleys, which was Dugan and I, kept recurring. And they did recur the rest of the group, but not as much. You know, like we did 8 out of 13 episodes, I think. We did as many episodes as you can do without them making you a regular on the show.
Yeah.
And the other people didn't come back as much. And then I did that Christopher Guest movie, which suddenly the name escapes me, and another one where we're the internal ensemble, Nothing in Common to some extent. And and then this movie, I can't think of the name of it either. It's Daniel Stern, and we're up in the mountains.
Oh, Bushwhacked.
Up in the mountains to shoot this thing.
Bushwhacked.
In what?
Bushwhacked.
Bushwhacked.
Yeah.
We go up to Tahoe to shoot for 4 days, and it rained, and we were there for 2 weeks, and we were all the parents of the children that were lost, right?
Right.
And we sat in a truck waiting for it to stop raining for 2 weeks, and we never stopped laughing. We laughed ourselves sick, which was also true of the Christopher Guest movie. We laughed ourselves sick sitting around.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you think the show got canceled because the time slot or the ratings?
I don't know. I will tell you that it was never in the same time twice. It was impossible to find that show. And I want to say this is at the dawn of VCRs and all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can't remember now if we were taping those shows or... In any case, it was so hard to find. And they never showed it, like, week to week. It got interrupted constantly. So, but I don't know if it would have survived one way or the other. I don't know if the show was any good or not, frankly.
Yeah. How was working on True Lies?
Oh, that was a strange experience, too, but really fun. It was one day, again, super hot, in a warehouse in a really bad neighborhood, which was scary to come home when I was leaving. And it was the 2 Arnolds and me and James Cameron in a room for however many hours that took to shoot all day, because that was an overtime one. And actually, my part had a fun little tag on it where Tom Arnold gives me like a Bugs Bunny kiss, you know, where he like grabs you by the ears.
Yeah.
Kisses you the way Bugs Bunny did. It was a funny bit, and it got cut.
Oh.
But James Cameron, and again, blink and you miss me in that movie. He actually came up to me at the cast and crew screening and said, "I'm really sorry. I wanted to tell you, like, before you see this, that your part like got cut some. Like my part was nothing anyway, right?"
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's kind of nice that he would bother to come up and tell me that, right?
Right.
Nice of him. He wasn't nice to the crew at all. He was kind of horrible to them, but he was real nice to the actors.
Yeah, that's what I hear about him. How did the Drew Carey Show come to you?
I auditioned for that. I had auditioned. First of all, the producer knew me from, I'm trying to think, it might have been His and Hers. It might have been, I'm trying to think why Bruce Halford knew me. But he did. And then, I can't remember why, but I knew Bruce, and he brought me in. I actually auditioned, or I can't remember if I did this. Yeah, I must have. Of course I did. I auditioned for the part of Mimi. Mimi was not a series regular. She was just a guest star role, period. And Mimi is like this mean, Mimi was Kathy, what's her name? Damn it. She's delightful, too. I can't think of her name all of a sudden. Anyway.
Caroline Rhea?
What?
Caroline Rhea?
No. That played Mimi on the with all the makeup on.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking it up. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, it's driving me nuts. Please, I'll torture myself for the rest of the day. And anyway, the part was this mean woman, and
Kathy Kinney
wore way too much makeup.
Yeah, Kathy Kinney.
Kathy Kinney, from Ohio, God love her, and allergic to lactose. So I auditioned for that role, and I knew she couldn't have 1 ounce of sympathy, this character.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not get rid of it. And Bruce said to me while I was auditioning, no, you can't, it can't have no sympathy. I'm like, I know. I do it again. And I couldn't take that out. I don't know what happened. I couldn't make her as mean as she was. I also believe, though, that if I somehow had done that and managed it,
mm-hmm.
it would have stayed, a guest star. Like, it wouldn't have become a series regular, because I think what Kathy brought to it was just a whole level of a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it all shook out the way it needed to shake out.
Yeah, it was a great show. I can imagine Drew Carey was a very nice guy.
Off and on?
Off and on. Yeah.
Well, okay, so we had met on a show called, I think it was called Someone Like Me, and it was a vehicle for Abby Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was that lady that was the wife on Raymond.
Oh, Patricia Heaton.
Patty Heaton.
Patricia Heaton,
was the mom. Abby Hoffman was the daughter. And then there were these wacky neighbors, which was me and this little girl they imported from Texas. What a pistol that kid was. And we were the wacky neighbors. And Drew was the writer on that. That's how we met.
Mm-hmm. And
we had a great time, actually, Drew. He always wore 2 different color socks, which was something I used to do. So right away we were like, hey. Now, I didn't wear 2 color socks when I was doing that show, but I had done, because it cheered me up when I did it. That's why I did it. And so we talked, and what he said to me is, if I ever have my own show, I'm going to have you be my girlfriend that's not my girlfriend, like the go-to girlfriend that you go to places with, so you have a girl with you. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do that when I have my show. And they did actually sort of try to make that, I can't remember that woman's name that was on that show all that time. They did try to do that with her, but it wasn't the same as if it was me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of statement, so to speak. But they were a jolly cast. You know, Diedrich was a lot of fun, and Ryan and I drove to work every day while I was working on that show.
Mm-hmm.
We were down here in Venice, too. Comes that truck again. It's garbage day.
Yeah. Craig Ferguson was on the show.
I ran in, and I'm running in, too. Yeah, Jeep, it's monsters.
You did an episode of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman. How was that experience?
Oh, nothing. It was kind of a big nothing. I had a super little part. I can't remember what I did. I was maybe a lawyer or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was really weird, like a ghost town. The 2 stars do not talk to each other. Everyone was horrified at, what's her name, Terry Hatch or whatever her name is. Apparently she's a nightmare in hell.
Yeah.
And so it's just this weird tension, and then you say your lines and leave.
Wow. And Robert Ginty directed. He was a very good actor, I felt.
Yeah, I don't remember anything except... I'll tell you the one thing I remember about that shoot. It was back before cell phones.
Yeah.
There was, you know, at that point, if you needed to make a phone call, there's a phone on the wall of the set. And I was waiting to use the phone as well as the costumer was waiting to use the phone. Somebody was on the phone, and in order to get that person off the phone, she said to that person, I have to make a call on behalf of Terry. Do you know what that means? To get this person off the phone. So, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
That's what the day was like.
And then you got to work with Mike Nichols on What Planet Are You From?
Yeah, that was really fun. Although I was shocked to find out later, although I'm shocked but not shocked, let's put it that way. Like, okay, so I think that the shoot that I did with him was the first day of the shoot. It might have been the first scene of the first day of the shoot. It's close to it if it wasn't. And Garry Shandling I had never met before, and I always loved the two shows that he did. You know, I can't remember if both of them had happened at that point, but I loved his work. And we actually got along really well because he's so neurotic that he just goes, "I'm really neurotic, I'm sorry." You know what I mean? So he was really easy to work with. And then later there was one of those, there was a couple, when Mike Nichols died, you know, there were a couple biography things about him. And one of them, oh, no, you know what it was? It was in the Garry Shandling one. That was so long, that big, like, 3-part thing they did about his life. They talked about in there how Mike Nichols discovered really quickly that Garry Shandling was a terrible, terrible actor and hated him from, like, after 10 minutes, he was done with Garry. And now, in retrospect, I can kind of go, oh, yeah, I can see that. But he liked me okay, Nichols did. And, you know, it's just, again, a blink and you miss it part. I do a lot of blink and you miss it parts. It's depressing. Work with amazing people. John Schlesinger, for God's sake.
Oh, yeah.
You know, some amazing directors. I've worked with Soderbergh twice now. You know, it's a lot of stuff. A lot of it's like, oh, they were...
I know. Some people, though, I mean, they can take those tiny parts and just rock it and be memorable to a lot of people, you know?
Well, I think I managed to do that more than not.
Yeah. So, but before the pandemic, did you have any projects you were working on?
I run a little theater out here, and yes, but not on movies and TV, no. Although I had done a thing that was supposed to be a recurring role, but it was near the end of the season, and they liked me a lot to the point where, like, every single person, producer, writer, actor, came up to me and said, "Oh, we hope to have you back." And I'm like, well, what would prevent that? And they said, well, you know, we need to get picked up for another season. So I don't know what will happen there.
Yeah. Do you get satisfaction from directing that you don't get from performing?
Yeah. No. It's different. It's just apples and oranges.
Yeah.
I like the puzzle of directing.
It's 50-50 for you?
And I like working with the actor. And I work with people a lot on, like, solo show type things. I do other stuff, too. Sometimes we do what I call hybrid shows, where we have an ensemble work with a solo performer at the point where the solo performer doesn't have a whole show yet, but needs to start workshopping the material in front of an audience.
Right.
We make an evening, and I've done that in several different ways to do that, and that has been just so much fun, and I think expands the boundary a little bit of what we think of even as a solo show to some extent. But I don't mean to say I'm like some kind of trailblazer here. I don't think that's the case, but I do enjoy that puzzle of how can we service this material? And, that really goes back to that Second City training. It's what's this about? What am I trying to, what's in it? My question to the actor always is, what's in it for me if I'm on the audience? Why do I have to leave my house, come and watch you? And let's give them a reason to do that. And, I say to them, you don't have to come in knowing that, what it is that you want to say. You have this idea you want to kick around, but by the end of it, man, you better know that. You better have that. And it's not teaching me a lesson, and it's not a moral to the story, and it's none of that. It's what do you enlighten in life by sharing this slice with the community? Because that is a huge thing, as we now feel with the pandemic, right?
Right.
All these Zoom things, we're all doing them. I am too, but live theater it's live. The whole point of it is to breathing people. It's a different experience. It's not, to me, it's not theater if it's not live. It's like what theater is. Watching someone whose heart is beating, whose breath is coming in and out of them as they work, right in front of you. It's amazing. You know, one of my first experiences with that, and obviously I've seen tons of live theater in my life, but when I was a kid, in those years before we had the showcase, the comedy showcase, and all that, when we were kicking around trying to do plays and this, that, and the next thing, I saw William Peterson do Belly the Beast at Wisdom Bridge, I believe is where it was.
Yeah.
And that, watching a live person do that right in front of you, that was mind-altering.
Nice.
So yeah, I have a great appreciation for live theater, and I'll be really, really glad when it's back. And that's really what I miss. You know, people are like, oh, what about the working? And yeah, I like working in movies and television. Who wouldn't? When I was on a set, especially the crabby sets.
Yeah.
If there's some crabby sets out there, I just always think, what's the matter with you people? You should walk in here skipping in here every single day.
Exactly.
Skip to work and skip back home. Your paycheck alone should do that for you.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a gift, making movies, creating, content for the world to see. It's a gift,
It's a huge gift, and I always feel so weirdly resentful when, they'll have somebody up on stage, Martin Scorsese say, or whoever, and they'll go, so, what's your next project? And it's like, that is such a huge luxury that you can choose your next project.
Yeah.
Who gets to do that? Well, I do, sort of, because of my theater. But, who gets to take millions of dollars and do something with it?
Yeah. It's really crazy the way...
and then the way they gas on about it, I'm like, oh, please. Somebody just gave you millions of dollars.
Yeah. It's crazy how people just, they take things for granted in the industry, especially when they get power,
Yes.
It's really, really sad.
Yes.
So now we get to my secret silly game that I like to play with guests. This is a lot of fun. Imagine you're at a slumber party with girlfriends. These are slumber party questions, and how this works is I ask you the question, you answer it, and then you ask me the exact same question, and I answer it. And
okay.
There's no win or loss. It's just fun.
Not yet.
Jane, are you ticklish?
Yes. All right, Tommy, are you ticklish?
I am just baby ticklish, yes. What is your favorite part of the body?
The face. What is your favorite part of the body?
The belly button. What color are your toenails painted?
They are not painted. What color are your toenails painted?
Au naturel. What would you say is your best personality trait?
My sense of humor. What's your best personality trait?
I agree. Mine is my sense of empathy and the fact that I have no filter. And my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag?
Yeah. This is a childhood memory one.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a child, I could not imagine how anyone could eat pizza. Now, I can't eat pizza now, mind you. But as a child, I would go to the farthest reaches of the house to get away from the smell of the pizza because it smelled exactly like puke to me. And I couldn't imagine how they could just eat a plate of puke.
Anchovies?
No.
Huh.
It was just cheese pizza with sausage. It smelled like puke.
That's interesting.
What is the smell that makes you gag?
Either farts or feet.
gross.
Yeah. Whenever I tell that to someone with kids, it doesn't affect them. They're used to it. They are used to it. Wow, the pizza one, though, that's mind-boggling because that's my favorite food, and I actually had it this weekend.
I love pizza now. I do. For some reason, as a child, that smell, and it's the cheese.
Mm-hmm.
What does it?
Yeah.
It doesn't smell like puke to me anymore, but I'm like, that smells exactly like puke.
Huh, that is interesting.
You love it.
That is interesting. Wow, that's going to stay with me for a while now. Well, Jane,
it smells like puke to me now. It smells like pizza.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, Jane, I hope this has been fun for you.
It has, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And, yeah, like you said, I hope, the theaters open up again after all this craziness is over.
Well, next Sunday at 3, I'll do a plug.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a group called Immediate Theater, which is run by Dan Castellaneta and his wife, Deb LaCosta.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a group that does improvisation to right?
Right.
And it's a great group of people, Second City people, Groundling people, you name it.
Yeah.
Annoyance people. There's like 10 of us, and we're doing a show next Sunday, June 28th, called Desperate Measures, and it's all monologues. So each person in the group is doing a monologue, and mine is last.
Sweet.
That run. It's at 3 o'clock on June 28th.
You're the headliner, then.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think my thing is just weird enough that it has to go last.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a teaser. It's called the Nietzsche Hotel.
The Nietzsche Hotel.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I hope it goes well for you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
You too. My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Well, there you have it. Jane Morris. Ain't she a sweetheart? Nice lady, very funny lady, great stories. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Till next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.